Hello everyone, welcome to the Wastewater Management Committee meeting. I'll get
Thank you, everybody. E te atua whakatūwhera tia mai e koe kia mātua I tēnei imu, nā huarei o te tika, o te oro, o te tūru, o te māmatinga kia mātua koe. He whakamoemiti, he whakakloria ki te ingoa tapu. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Yeah, apologies for being a bit late, but yeah, so we've also got apologies from Councillor Tupara and also Councillor Ron Tibble. Move of those.
And I'll just add Leroy to that too.
Oh, and Leroy. And Leroy.
And I'll second Tony's.
And I'd like to welcome Councillor Tony Robinson to the team.
Alright, let's just move on.
Okay, we've got no declarations of interest. Confidential of the non-confidential minutes. Everything is read. I have a mover.
Maybe to move the first set of minutes.
Okay. Moved by Ronald and seconded by Angus. All in favour?
Can I just...
And that's the confirmation of the 29th of November ones, the confirmation of the 6th of December. Moved by Ronald.
Can I just make an amendment to that?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I did send my apologies.
Okay. Could you note that, please? Yeah. Thank you. That's in the December meeting. We've got governance work plan on page 11. Everyone happy with that?
Oh, sorry, just... I know it'll come up in Leo's report. I just get nothing noted about the tour that took place. But we should have recorded that in the minutes or something.
Site tour.
Yeah. So when we do the report to the CE.
Yep.
It was a good month too.
We've got no leaves of absence, no applicants, not on petitions, we have none. Extraordinary business, we have none. Notice of motion, we have none. Adjourned business, we have none. So on page 12, we'll go straight to report to the Chief Executive and staff and DrainWise program update.
Mr. Chair, sorry, just back to page 11 on the governance plan. The last entry there, AUD, is there a date to be assigned to that? It just says this report is to update. Update the committee on progress of AUD. There's no date assigned or colour coding assigned to it. So where does that stand in the timeline?
So working through a program, I kind of wanted to get something added to this agenda, which was the WMC is really to guide what they would request in the next steps of AUD. So there was a report done on looking at the irrigation, using it for irrigation, but then looking at what the go forward is on that.
My computer's just totally froze.
I agree with Tony too. I understand one from the state secretary commission and do a couple other little bits before we, once you're with what we're going to work at the end a little bit as well.
Yeah, I looked at the report as to where we're at with the treatment.
Yes.
But then, ultimately looking at
Options, timeframes, timeline.
building a program.
It would be really good to see a report which pulls together all the different conversations, because I know there's lots of different conversations been going on.
There's a lot of history there.
Yeah, it would be really great to just have something like, I think even for the fellow councillors and for the public in general, just having an idea of what the AUD status is and where we're going forward. There's a lot of opportunities and we're at a time, I think, where this region's going to need to take some opportunities.
I think there was, the reason why we're at a crossroads was AUD was always before expensive work were done. Some of that is a little bit redundant, that history of AUD. It's like we've got a new product now, I said, so is there a better means of using it?
And I was reporting back in regard to the case from the status as to the zero informed.
Yeah, I think a report that covers sort of an open future as opposed to a report that closes the topic down, because as you say, there's been a lot of stuff done before, and as Penny has just said that a new product, and I'd be really, really grateful.
Yeah, noted, okay. All right, we're going to page 12 of the agenda. And it's a DrainWise program update. Yep.
Thank you. So this report is from our last WMC meeting, so the 7th of November through to the end of January. The first, and just talking through the summary, we had one scour event. From the scale of what I've looked at in history, it was a very short event. It was in November on the 25th, through a rain event occurred that, where we had to open up the scours to relieve pressure on the IT side. And it was really, I'll put in there that it was exacerbated by the very wet ground conditions, because basically a groundwater table was sitting at ground level. So which really speeds up the transition of water into the wastewater network. They're a lot different now that we've actually had some dry weather and conditions have changed. We've also, on the next one, we've got rapid inflow assessment. So through that period from November to January, 409 properties were inspected in Elgin, around the Gisborne area, outlet, and selective ones around Gisborne City. Out of that, 260 gully traps were repaired and 9 downpipes removed, which is, we talked about last time, is quite substantial, because that's about 50 houses worth per downpipe of wastewater flow. So removing 9 is substantial. I've given a summary of inspections to date. So there's 12,391 properties that require to be inspected. We're sitting at 3,960. To date, 1,729 gully traps repaired and 64 downpipes removed. Critically, out of the data that I've supplied, I've removed KIT from that data at the moment, because we're working through a status and confidence level in regards to the historical inspections that have been done in KIT, which are obviously done several years ago. And there is a table there that's provided on the inspection of a couple of hundred houses where those confidence levels lie. The percentage are looking good at the 95%, but there's several sitting at 50 to 80. And what that means is, have the repairs been done? So they've inspected, have they been done? We've got a system now with the people we're using to do our inspections, where we know that they're going there. If there's something that is wrong, they're fixing it within the day, or within a few days if it's a downpipe. Or we're setting a program with the resident if it's a downpipe that requires a lot of work. So we've got an incredibly high level of confidence in the inspections that have been done over the last couple of years. And so we're just working back to ensure that when we do get a full round around the city, we're confident that we've ticked those boxes and can move forward, because the gains from doing these inspections is substantial. What we have done is, just to give, kind of talked about it last time, give a bit of a visual representation of where those inspections are, both for the November to January period on page 2 of the report. and historically where they are. And as you can see in the Karakia region, we've just included the checks we've done recently to just check what the status is of historical inspections there. But it's quite substantial, the area that has been covered. And the stars represent gully traps that have been repaired, and the green dots, which are quite visible too, are the DTs inspected but no issues.
And that data is reliable?
That data is very reliable. It goes in, so all the data, like Jeff, when he's doing his inspections, he's got a tablet, so he's inputting that data as he does it. It's GPS, he's GPSing those marks as well. And we've gone back through those inspections that have been done and who have done them to gain, to get a high level of confidence that those repairs have been done. Obviously, there are some that sit on there that we can't get access to, so they sit on a program that will work through to endeavour to get in there and do those inspections.
It's a great visual.
Yes, yeah, it kind of helps with a bit of clarity around what's been going on in the city.
Just Leo, so on that first page you spoke of 12,391 properties, of which almost 4,000 have been inspected, so that's 80%. Is that 12,000 properties in the city? In the city?
On the network.
On the network, okay. And that's including commercial or just residential?
Residential. Although we have done the schools, as reported last time, they've gone through and done all of the schools and found some issues there and have worked through with them.
It's just that I looked at that figure, it's showing you've inspected about 30%, and I look at the map, and I think, wow, where's the other 66% sitting, because that map is quite comprehensive and looks like most of the cities.
I think it's hard when we're looking at a map in regards to giving a visual representation that, how those percentages look, but that's the numbers that sit within the system. And that 4,000 is what's represented in inspections on that display there. Missing Karakia, which there's a lot of houses in there, is substantial. And saying that that's not the only inspections done, that's just the inspections we've done that at this particular point have a high level of confidence in the delivery of the service. So we've still got a bit to do, basically. Given a budget status, we're about, at that end of January, about 186k spent of a just under 340k budget. The remaining budget will be close to, by the end of the year, will have spent that through the inspections and simple repairs. The report then moves on to public drains on private property, which is a program of removing localised flooding that is topping gully traps and transferring that into stormwater network. So we're removing it from impacting on our wastewater system. A project, Ida Road Cold Stream project, was started in 2022, but through Gabriel impact and the very wet 23, it has just been completed. Once everything dried up. We've got the 608 and 16 Wainui project that is design's been completed. Property owners have given approval, and we are just finalising now actually the resource consent process and working through procurement for that one. That will be done before the end of the financial year, currently tracking. We've got a few other projects there, 118 Gladstone Road, which was at this point of writing this was in its preliminary stage of getting towards a design process, and Harry Barker Reserve and Scott Street in a similar status. They've now all progressed to the point, and those projects will commit the balance of our budget for this financial year.
So you're quite happy that you'll get to because you've got quite a bit, 641 budget remaining, so...
I think we'll commit it. I don't think we'll spend it. It will be committed to projects.
Ongoing for next year.
Yeah, and what we're talking about here is we've got a team now that can actually focus on these projects. They've got this program and rolling forward. So kind of in the motion of setting it up, so then we're just perpetual and we're rolling on. So catching up on history. The team's been kind of formed just in the new year. And we've got these projects rolling now to ensure that we commit our next year's 550k budget every year to keeping this traction going on removing localised storm. But it's a case of all the work's been put into getting the team together, forming the program, and then getting that program rolling so that, and a line of sight on where we're going to, which is that picture there, which actually illustrates the projects that have been completed, which are the green program. Most of them you'll notice are in Kaiti. The blue were the ones that were inspected that actually didn't turn into a project, weren't required. The red is the forecast program of inspections that need to happen to complete the city. So it's a case of working with the team to go, where are we, what have we done to date, where are we and where are we going, which is illustrated in there as in regards to what the scale of work looks like. So that's about a case of setting that program and the plan for the team. So there's no...
So there's a fair bit of red in Whatupoko and over Te Hapara. Now historically, Whatupoko has been a source of overflow and discharge to the river, so would that then be sort of more prioritised, that mahi, over say Te Hapara, where it's not historically?
Certainly that's a program that's right now. We actually have got stormwater budget as well when it looks at Whatupoko and working through this program as holistically. So certainly it is a case of now putting on a page saying here is everything and then going through and prioritising those programs. So for this particular year, what we have chosen is those ones that we know we can get running in regards to utilisation of the budget, and then there's a progressive plan around prioritising by need.
These are pretty much open drains.
Yeah, kind of a mix of various things, but the Wainui Road one is essentially a little bit of enclosed culverts drains to open swales to really manage flows and lessen the impact.
And there's a maintenance program for those drains.
They'll be written into those programs. Yeah.
Important for the future.
Definitely maintain. So yeah, as you've talked to Larry, there's still a fair bit of budget there, but this was early in the new year, so that is now rapidly getting committed.
Right.
We will have a status in the next report on where we predict we're going to end up with unspent, and whether that's carried forward or sitting there on a request to be carried forward if we lock it into projects.
Near the end of the financial year.
We've got stormwater renewals. 158A Stout Street project was completed. The Disraeli Childers Road stormwater channel, which is a brick archway, which required work to strengthen and then lining, has been completed. It was a project that kind of fell out of Gabriel to a point. We're working on the preliminary stuff for the program for the 24-25 program while finishing the budget for this current financial year. A major project that sits in there is the Graham Road project, which is 633,000, I think, against it. It sits slightly outside the stormwater budget. It's a specific project, but that one has been carried forward into the next year, and that was directly due to the impact of Gabriel. The water table was just too high and it was not safe to do that work. At the moment, cost of project is not going to fall into that one. The Tarahiru Waruheisman project was deferred because that was a developer-based one. At this point of this report, stormwater renewals, inclusive of commitments to date, we're tracking to spend the forecasted budget. As you can see, there's about 96k remaining.
Is there any reason why the Hazeman project was deferred as developers have withdrawn?
That was directly related to that was developer funds. Prior to that, they pulled out of, I'm not sure what the reasoning was, but they've pulled out of that project. So it'll sit there if someone takes up that program again. So it's directly related to managing that development.
Right, okay.
And what's the area that you referred to as, Water?
There's interconnecting roads of that Hazeman, and Water was another road that comes through in the zone, I think. I had to do some research on it as well to understand it. So wastewater renewals, tracking really well in this area. The 22-23 contract was finally completed, pretty much late 2023. So that should have, that's about 7 months overdue. The 23-24 program started late 23, but is in full swing now. And they're on track to complete. They've got about 2 weeks worth of work left, and they're back to site either late next week or the week after to complete those 2 weeks worth of work. That includes an emergency works where we'll get to do something on Stanley Road as well, just to line a pipe that doesn't look that great. The budget is on track to be spent. It does include the lining that we have done on the Nelson Road projects, which were projects that required through issues with the pipework itself. We had to renew a manhole and renew about 24 metres of pipe. So that's fallen into this as well. It's a capital-based program. So what we have also got as a part of the 23-24 program is in Irinuri Road, we're going to be doing some camera work on private laterals. So we're doing work on laterals from our main line to the property boundary. So we're lining that, but we're also going to send the camera up just to inspect those private properties, just to give a bit of a status of condition. It's the oldest piping, as I understand it, in Gisborne when it comes to laterals, so it's going to give us a really good insight as to how good or challenging or bad they are. Because as we know, 50% of our lateral network is on private property, so it's a high factor of risk when working through this program that we are, and something we're working on as to how we move that forward. So that information will come through after they've completed their program. So we expect that in a few weeks' time. And there's a lot of budget remaining there. However, the forecast by the time those contracts are actually completed is, I think, got about $1,000 left or something like that. So we're tracking pretty well. I did just work with our team in regards to providing a bit of an insight into what wastewater renewal spend projection looks like. The blue represents the age of pipe and the need for replacement. The orange is the program as we've set it from the 25-year onwards, budget year onwards. In regards to, we've got a surge of spend over 3 to 4 years, and then what we're looking at is an equalised annual spend, regular spend, where those are in 2-year programs, that spend of just maintenance of the network, so bringing things up to date. So an initial substantial spend over a period of 5 to 6 years, and then bring it down into a more uniform spend.
So that means at the end, it looks like the renewal needs are going to be greater than the...
So what you see there in regards to the orange versus the blue is catching up on the historical blue as well, because this is after the renewals have been done year to date.
Yeah.
So it's reflecting we've got a catch-up program, and also taking out those peaks through 2046 onwards. And the orange is about stabilising that program. We're taking care of the critical risk, and we are then introducing a more uniform program of maintenance, essentially.
Is there life expectancy for these?
50 years for CIP mining, that's what I'm told.
So just picking up on the chair's point, in the last two columns, the blue, the renewal needs is probably almost 3 times the budget, and at least twice in the very furthest right column. How are we not going to be back in the same position again? Or?
So the way that it has been worked out is, I'll provide some more data maybe in the next one, but those blue are equalised by the orange spend in total.
Right, so the orange up front now.
Yeah. So what we're doing is catching up and catching up on those peaks in the future to then end up with a more stabilised program rather than having the dips and the peaks maybe historically and then I think only is bringing that back under control and then having a maintenance program that sustains a good wastewater network.
From a visual perspective, wouldn't it be that if you're doing that mahi now, which is titled recovery plan, would those renewal needs not be renewal needs in the future then because you've met those needs now? Is that what I'm saying you're saying? You're meeting those needs now by putting it orange in now?
I think what we're saying is, the team is there'll always be renewals because you'll be upping up and replacing and then that's that kind of program that we're talking about is that we're catching up with lining and then the program going forward becomes a maintenance of network age to be a sustainable, long-term, efficient system.
Is that capturing renewal of the actual pipe without lining?
This is essentially initially the lining program and then sort of saying there'd be annualised renewals to maintain.
So a lot of that renewals in the future will be including replacing rather than just lining, which is far cheaper.
Yeah. Yes, it's a hideous to comprehend the dollar value of what you have to replace.
And that's why, as I understand it, the CIP has been the most efficient way to progress rapidly, sealing the pipe without the massive cost that comes with extraction.
So one of the problems we face with water security is that we've got enough water up in our dams and we've got reservoirs, but we can't, at high demand times in the year, we can't pump that water under pressure to the degree needed to refill the town reservoirs overnight to service all the needs the next day because of the age pipes will blow in places, as it happened at Mangapapa when Sedenko took a machine offline without telling us one time, and the additional increase or loss of demand then blew the pipes. Do we know what it might actually cost to meet remedial work in the system so that in fact we could pump at full capacity, fill our reservoirs up overnight?
This is for drinking water.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there's different wood around wastewater renewals.
Just as a question that I've always...
There's a lot of work going on in that space too, around resilience of our water supply and how we work through those kind of challenges. So yeah, that's another big toolkit.
It's not on the agenda, but yeah.
No, good question.
Well, what's the time frame for the whole network to be renewed?
I'll have to come back to you on that one. This was kind of indicating we would that by 2031, 33, we'd be in that equalised program of taking care of the bulk of the work in regards to those critical lines, getting them sealed, and where we're getting that work performing. Additional to this is the city network. So this is our council-owned network. We'll have working up a program around what we do with on-property laterals, which are a part of the issue as well. That's a separate challenge.
So on your point, I'm not sure if you ever completely renew, because by the time you've moved around to the first pipes are...
Well, that's why I asked 50 years, so 50 years that we all replace, right?
If we were building new pipes, brand new pipes, you'd actually be aiming for 100 years or longer. Where I was previously, we'd be very happy taking many assets through to 200 years based on their condition at certain points. So what we want to get better at in time is deciding where you renew and where you patch and where you do other work. So, and sometimes it makes sense to run a section of the network a little bit to fail, so you take greater risk because they're less critical. And with trunk mains and other things, you're normally a bit more conservative. So it's a balance. In Auckland, for instance, they've got earthen pipe weir that they won't change in the central city. It's been there since the late 1800s, and it's operating fine. Doesn't need much, it's not under much pressure, works all right. And we'd find we might have elements of that here too. So I think over time you aim to replace what you need to, and other bits you do. If we don't get indications to swap out, why would we? We wouldn't. We'd use
I
it.
think it's managing it at a point not to be in this situation again, isn't it?
When you run assets, what you really want is a total vision of the asset health. And sometimes you've got less healthy bits, but if it's balanced, you're okay. If you end up with a net debt that's getting too large, like we need to do, then it's more hard to manage. When the big hits come, things get worse. And they echo ahead in years, but they all come back.
It's probably for the councillors rather than for Kiwi, but my concern is around what that lateral work will mean for private dwellers.
It is the responsibility of private landowners to undertake that work, and at a certain point of network efficiency, that's where the money should be spent, because you're sort of using our capital, collective capital, to fix a problem where the real problem is maybe in laterals. Maybe there needs to be ways of softening that. We certainly help with the DrainWise program, work really collaboratively with willing owners. Everyone's very motivated to reduce costs. Some people just can't meet them. So those discussions we need to have, but the benefits to our network are huge. Yes. Yeah.
The focus on a lot of the lining to date has been where the biggest net gains are. So you're looking at, for pipe effects, 10,000 people, you're going to line that. The laterals obviously are one property. So it's working through a kind of a risk profiling of getting it down to whereby, like at the moment we've just done, a handful of laterals to the properties just to actually gauge that and inform that program.
Yeah, so collecting some good data helps us inform on that.
Yeah. Just in reference to the DrainWise program, I guess when we did the original consent, we were standing on the beach looking out to sea, and somehow this has come across our table as one of the other things we keep an eye on as well. One of the other things is the scours, and yes, we need to be reported to. When can we reduce the
amount of scours being open? Yeah.
And
There's a timing issue, isn't there? And the timing between heavy rainfall events and the opening of the scours is getting greater, which is an indication that what the DrainWise program is working in certain areas, and working in the areas that it's supposed to, where it's been implemented. So that's the only monitor that you've got at the moment, and how successful the DrainWise program is. And I'm not quite sure what that time is from 4 years ago to now, but I would imagine it would be getting quite significant.
It would also depend on the conditions around it. We've got water flowing into the pipes now because of the groundwater. It wouldn't in another year.
Yeah.
So that takes up some of that capacity already.
Well, that's interesting to know what a baseline was just like in a relatively dry month. How much water is entering the wastewater system just through groundwater ingress?
Yeah, well, that's why we do night flows when you do gauging. So you go in overnight when your natural use of water is low by the population.
3 in the morning, you know.
Yeah, well, not too much.
The older demographic, you know.
Yeah, a little bit, just don't flush, we need to help our data a bit. But I think by that you can get a baseline around acceptable figures for morning rates, and then you get ideas on where you think that infiltration is happening. Yeah.
Because we need to know like what percentage of the system capacity is already lost just inherently, just through groundwater. I mean, in a perfect world, we could pull out all the broken bits and seal it all up and we'd have zero loss or zero ingress, but we don't. But is it 1 or 2% that we're losing on the
Of the groundwater?
of the final capacity of the, we can do 450 litres a second, is it?
It's already been sized, wastewater networks are already sized for a certain amount of infiltration that comes in, and that came from experience with engineers hundreds of years. Sort of. So you're already sizing for that. And when we do this work too, the next day things start deteriorating and they never repair themselves, they go the other way. You never really get on top of everything. You just always got to keep investing. But what percentage of I&I, not sure if we've got those figures to hand, but they'd be estimates at best. And it's sometimes good to just lock off a single catchment and then draw a conclusion based on how many properties, what you expect overnight, and the water quality too can give you an indication. Because groundwater flow is clean, so you can actually sample and get an idea.
Just putting on my other potai and thinking about the future development strategy, which talks about intensification and housing development in the city. It'd be interesting, like as people fill in the back section with another house, and if we already knew that the data showed that in fact their existing lateral was probably contributing, leaking and they're broken, a requirement that they actually upgrade both when they do it, because you're going to open up the ground once for a back house, you might as well put a new, the new pipe into your front house at the same time. It would be really interesting to have that data, because the stuff we're going to be talking about in council's meeting on Thursday is projecting about 5,000 more property houses in the city. We would anticipate all of those new connections would be sealed and not contributing to this problem. But if you're going to open up the whenua for all of those new connections, wouldn't it be a great opportunity to fix it on the way, any that are pakaru?
It might prevent the opportunity. Would it be a cost that was landed?
Yes. And it could be built in to the simple development contribution fee that is paid by the landowner. And if they can budget it in at the outset and know, if I put a house in the back, I'm going to add another couple of grand for fixing all of my sewage problems.
Yeah. Well, if they're altering their property, that happens anyway, but not the
existing though. They wouldn't have to
not altering the existing. So if they're demoing their house, that's only again. But if it's a separate unit, they would be looking to gain efficiency from the present lateral, and they'll be very motivated to do that, because why they're building a separate house on their own property might be for a member of the family who needs a place. So that's a tough discussion potentially, because they'll be looking to do what their neighbours did and do it for free and didn't ask anyone.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge, I guess. Yeah.
Maybe just an answer to, we are working through how we gather information from the network too to measure performance. Further in this document, we have put in some smart manholes, but also potentially meters in certain areas, and we would like to really give us a bit more data to work with. Really, what we're after is showing the efficiency of the work that's being done. We know that from just actuals to date, that the network can cope with 6 times normal dry weather flows, and that's the team doing lots of work to get to that, which gives a degree of the capacity if the network was able to be partially or totally sealed.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a program. There is a bit of work going on how we gauge progress.
I think that data will be really critical moving forward. I mean, I just think if, on the mapping, Whatuupoko was a region which had a lot of capacity for additional housing, and Whatuupoko was also one of the regions which is one of the major contributors to overflow into the rivers.
Yeah, that's, a lot of that's to do with the age there, because it's one of the original
Older areas, yeah.
Yeah, and that's true of any municipality as well. Just a nature of age, so, yeah.
Thank you. That's kind of the end of the summary.
I might just come in on the end there, and it comes up in the, again in the next report, and that's just with us progressing where we go with what we call ourselves, I'll use the other, yeah, Tangata Whenua reference group. Yes, Tangata Whenua, not Tarawhiti, is it? Yep, Tangata Whenua reference group. There's definitely in the shellfish thing, a need for the input, shellfish thing, unless we do some.
And we have started that process of setting out in 4 meetings for this year. What's the group's still yet to confirm its MOU, but that was what we're going to be proposing in the first meeting to get traction on that group. So we do see it as a critical part of the work we're doing, as well as a part of this group.
I think certainly us as Tangata Whenua around the table here would want to see that coming together sooner rather than later. And if it's not going to come together, then we're one around. Yeah.
Can you just remind me the value of the survey?
The survey was in as a consent condition, which was to first go out and survey what the timing was, what needed to happen to then inform the and for the Wastewater Management Committee as well to agree that the survey and the proposal for the way the survey was conducted was acceptable, and then the survey was just to inform if scales are opened, these samples would be taken in a certain period of time to gauge is there an impact on the seafood and the moana from those scales being opened. This is for the shellfish virus testing, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to grapple with the outcome for this. So you've done the survey, found these viruses or no viruses, then what?
To inform what that impact is, and then for that question to be posed if that impact is great, and this is about this holistic program tourism of reducing the potential for those events to occur and the value of that reduction, but also to inform if it does happen, what is the risk as well. So it's an information gathering to inform, I'm guessing, pathways forward, and to reiterate this program that we're working through, the value of it.
I'm just struggling to see how that's going to inform AUD, for example.
It's really the impact of wet weather overflows and dry weather overflows of the to our, and what the impact is on the health and life of that body.
Yeah, that consent, it's the dry and wet weather
Yes, it
consent,
is, yeah.
not the outfall.
Yeah.
So how much does that information sort of have on the last sort of summer we just had? The closure?
We're yet to do this. This is the proposal for that work to continue. There's a requirement of a budget of about $130,000 to do it per time. So it's not actually been done yet. This was a case of going back through history. Well, I am trying to finding this stuff and then bringing it back to this committee to go, look, this has been done. Do we want to move forward with? Is the methodology agreed, and can we move forward with? If we do have another wet weather overflow with getting this program with sampling the survey underway.
Is this going to be an ongoing process, these are?
I think it'll be informed at this level in regards to maybe the value of that going forward after this first
Sampling of the outfall in particular would be, that's been done in the past.
There's the benthic survey sampling. We're just trying to
One of the templates in the wastewater treatment plant is fully operational. That contamination will be way less at the outflow itself. Yeah, more than previously.
So, yeah, did you say this sampling costs $130,000 per time? I did see that, I saw that somewhere, it was 100, yeah. So, you'd have to imagine you do one run of it to get your baseline, and then another run at some point to see what the actual impact is on a medium weather event resulting in sort of average scale opening, and then maybe another one when it's a full-on event. Because on a full-on event, not only the scale's open, but there's also a lot more water coming down and there's more dilution. So potentially, actually, it's
sat in there as a condition that had to be worked through. And then it would be if that information were gathered, a value of that information and that data at this level.
Well, the question's really relevant. I mean, what's the point of it? What do we do with it? If it comes out, crikey dick, it's horrific, but we just had to go through the process as part of the consent, but actually have to do anything with the results, then...
Yeah.
Or the downside, we can't establish any yes, horrific downside, and so they'll carry on doing it. Opening the skins.
We do have those consents that we're working towards to put us on the pathway of reducing those, which is the focus. To talk to the reasons around that for that survey, I'm not totally clear on that. It's a case of judging the impact to then inform.
But it's a requirement of our current resource consent.
It's in there, is it?
You don't need our approval here, you're just informing us that this is the draft proposal for the survey, and then it'll happen at some point.
To provide the methodology around it to then inform the next steps of undertaking that in a wet weather event.
So the precautionary measure we have at the moment is the 5 days after an event, no swimming in the ocean after 5 days and no collecting a shot of Con 1.
Right along our coastline.
Well, when we put those signs up, it is for the rivers that those scales would open up on, and say along the immediate section of the flow into the Waino as well. Yeah, as a point of management, I suppose, or reducing the risk to.
My only observation about the methodology would be, although the methodology is a scientific process, there doesn't appear to be any requirement or stage or step where there's actual involvement or consultation with tangata whenua. There's miss it.
Yes, so this committee will have a little bit of say into it if not.
Just if you could take me to it, it'd be awesome there.
So they read it a few days back.
Time to request a call from or work alongside council staff and members of the Benefit Reference Group to implement methodology. It's probably on page 30 of 52, second paragraph. Probably any reference to it. Locations will be determined by the project manager and Tangata Whenua Reference Group.
Yeah,
And if this group's happy with that and being sufficient, I'm happy to support the methodology as it stands, but it's not my position, it's not Tangata Whenua.
And that's hence my questions about who will be on that group and us getting to their input earlier in the in the process.
So I'm happy to, it's only a noting report anyway.
I will note that, yes.
So just a question of, you just stated there's no budget.
Okay, so it was getting it through. It's gonna be on this one, thing if there is we would over, I hope every year we and then we would use it into our, see where the capacity was within our budgets to do this program.
So this is just about us, even though it's just a noting report, it's about us approving the process, and then it can be aligned with the budget.
Well, what's this committee's thoughts on where this lies? Because my view is this is a really important, and I think it noted, we're noting the report that actually this committee strongly wants the budget to be made available for this to happen, because I think it's really important. But Ms. Conn has her hand up.
If you want to make a recommendation to council, you may.
Yes. Yes, can we? All right. Ron, do you have any further thoughts on that? Because I'd second your motion if you want to.
Oh, look, I'm just challenged from the action out of the report and my reluctance to spend money on something we're not going to do anything about. Whilst I appreciate understanding the breadth of the potential contamination and the seriousness of that, unless we can actually do something about it, I just think it's a waste of money. I would rather us invest our time and effort into finding the alternatives that make that option for no scales to be opened, rather than test what's happened after they've been opened.
Yeah. Put the money in to prevent from the DrainWise program.
Yeah, if that means 20 more houses are done and the laterals are done, I'd rather us spend money on that. Like you've said, 5 days you can't go, and that's standard anyway, right? But again, it's about how that engagement works with iwi responsible for those wahi-tapu. So that's more what. But look, I'm keen that this goes through the TRWP, is it? Would for their considerations, but like Penny, I'm concerned about a lack of movement in terms of their membership and discussing these things. Noting we've lost a couple of people along the way who were in the group. I wouldn't want to move it, sorry, Tony.
I just wasn't sure where you stood.
Through you, Chair, another option is to bring back a decision report for the committee that is actually a bit more analytical over the reasons why and steps moving forward.
Yeah, in fact, it's part of our consent is we're obligated to do it.
And my apologies, Mr. Chair, I can't quite recall moving through that resource consent process. That might be something that we said, but I can't quite remember.
Yeah. Oh. You would presume there would be something in there, wouldn't you, in the consent?
Yes, well, I know the Kiwa Group provided some suggestions to the consent itself.
Yeah. Maybe can we come back to our next meeting?
Definitely, I'll put it down to that section.
Because I think the committee agrees that there's the information would be certainly invaluable, but and the costs of this. I think in principle we would acknowledge the importance of that kind of information coming from this survey.
Yeah, because I know Neville spent a lot of time with the Kiwa Group on this.
Yeah.
Consent.
Yeah.
So I can't quite recall our reasoning behind some of these things.
Does the consent provide a timeframe within which this survey is meant to have been undertaken? Are we in breach of that?
No, because it also relies on the forming of the tangata whenua reference group, so it is aligned with that as well.
It's ironic, isn't it?
So the methodology was the first point, to get that done, and that was done in the right time. And then it was to go through at this level and with that group for taking the next step, and then aligned with being done with an actual overflow event as well.
So, well, building on that then, Mr Chair, I mean, I see that the tangata whenua reference group is not on the agenda today,
No.
but can we please add it to the end of the agenda and have a sort of those statements?
Because, you happy with that? Just a discussion about the,
We've obviously got to make some traction on it, haven't we?
yeah, we do, yeah. I don't know what work's been done in between since our last Wastewater meeting to try and upgrade the Kiwa group.
We don't have general business, through you, Chair, in our terms of reference. We probably have to close the meeting and have an informal discussion.
Yeah, because there's the other things the group was responsible to around the Wisconsin Mound.
Yeah, it's console
All
down.
those sort of things. So again, those things are just sitting in abeyance until this group can come back together. Apart from the consent for that, which is
Yeah, because there's has to be a whole new location and everything from the water table that includes the Talahu.
Chair, I have an easy question for you. So if you put such a survey together, surely you would want to work off a baseline and not the survey be the baseline. Is there any baseline for what we're doing in our 3 rivers?
I'd have to look into that.
I don't think there is.
I suspect this was to set the baseline.
Yeah.
Well, they're just bringing information from studies they've done before,
Yeah.
baseline.
Reading the consent, I kind of read this as setting the baseline in regards to what was the impact of an overflow event on seafood and shellfish, and therefore valuing the work that's being done in here to reduce those down, if not to a much lower level. So therefore, the health of the shellfish and whatnot is improved.
Yeah, second easy question I got. There's no litmus test. There's nothing you can just chuck in the water. This is it. You got
Yeah. I wish that was the case, because all these things have lots of zeros against them. So, but that was.
Doesn't the district health board take samples when there is an event, or who shuts down the shellfish? Who checks for toxins?
We put the signage up after.
We put the signs up. We don't check, we just put the signs up.
Is someone doing a check?
No.
Not even spot checks. Someone.
No, that's their controversy at the moment about that just being closed off.
Yeah.
Someone's doing the check 83 miles away.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the places being said that you can't swim there. No one been actually to that spot to test it.
But is it officially the medical officer of the house role? Isn't that his role or her role?
There has been a toxin
Yeah. So they
contamination.
They reported on toxin on the east coast, so that
Yeah, there must be some
based on the data.
information out there by NIWA, wasn't it? That did,
Yeah, well, that's free information if it's sitting
Yeah.
out there. It doesn't cost us.
Certainly when I was on the health board, we never had that cross our paper and my was like reporting, state of the shellfish, state of the rivers, we never had anything like toxicology.
I think that's part of the statutory role. So not specifically a board role.
But there might be some free information out there.
I wouldn't mind knowing where the rock oysters are.
That's 125 mil power that I'm interested in.
Yeah, but I think the Kiwi group did do some research, not necessarily around the scours are open, but they have done some research around the quality of water and the living
I think we've thrashed that. It's a noting report, led by Penny and seconded by Ron. All those in favour? Agreed. Okay, we go to page 47 for our wastewater treatment plant upgrade stage 2. We went there for a visit after our last meeting. It was sure.
Just know the appreciation of the team.
Yeah. Yeah, no, a lot of knowledge in that institution there. We've got staff that have been there for so long. Fantastic.
Amazing thing. So, just talking to the summary, trial operations at the end of January were yet to commence due to the effluent coming from stage 1. Basically, in simple summary, the trickle filter had been impacted by fantastic flows from parties and whatnot over the Christmas New Year's, which dropped out the biological activity and from rhythm of vines, etc. So it was in readjustment mode of re-establishing. The project team continuing to work with designers and principal procured equipment suppliers to resolve the process-related matters, preventing us from moving on, which was with the clarifier, the tertiary filter, minor sort of issues with the UV. The plant, a critical note was, well, at this point anyway, the plant stage 2 operational. So product is going through the clarifier, going through the tertiary filters, through the UV, solids were being removed, and they're going into the screw presses and being collected and going for composting. It's actually running really well.
Is there their composting, is it part of AUD?
It certainly is in regards to the solids have been taken off. They've been converted at that point through the BTF, so they're just biological solids, and they're going to a composting site where they're taking it through a heat stabilising process to convert it into beautiful organic.
Because there was one of the sort of barriers about just people knowing that it's usable, because I'm not too sure.
The first ones are coming off about now. They might have last week or two or something like that for using for in the district, fruit, etc. Apples. It is, so it's doing a full circle.
Yeah, so it's good for their hard stuff, and maybe it sort of supports the other opportunity, which is the water, recycled water. So I just thought that should be it's a positive anyway.
And the solids process, which I think the team did a great job of getting. Other operations have taken 6 to 9 months to get to the level that they got to, and were established actually even through December. So quite quickly, where there were high solids levels of 17 to 20% of that material going out, and the volumes are looking good, but the volumes do drop out when the BTF is not operating as well as it should. So those are the kind of variables that we're working with to stabilise that.
Could you say that last time again, please? Why is the BTF not working as good as it should?
It's like, you might want to talk to that better than me, but certainly through, we had issues late last year before the rainfall and it basically washing out the biological activity, and then there was from the waste that was collected from the likes of rhythm and vines, etc. too, that also dropped out for other reasons, biological activity in there. Oh. And then you're waiting for a period for that to readjust and that biological activity to build in there, because that's the conversion and production of solids that come.
BTF has more variable a treatment process. So if you throw different things in it, it responds differently than others. The benefit of that, it was much more cost effective to build, but it has a variable output. If you throw variable, you have nice steady flow, constant amount of nutrients for it, it'll operate really well. we tend to mix it up a bit. Slightly unstable because of that.
How did the rhythm and vines upset it?
Other items and
What's the other chemical elements in the...
Yeah, so you either speed up or slow down the nutrients. Yeah.
Stimulants, was it?
Well, not only that, I think they are also, a lot of the wastes here came in big bulk flows as well. So they'd come in
through load.
Yeah, hit big loads at massive times, and you know one tanker truck can deliver as much as the city can in hours in a few minutes.
So we can manage that better, they can't be by simply...
To a point, but they're constant flows, and it's got to be transferred. And it's during times of low flows as well, because it's in summer. You know, there's not as much activity going.
The tanker
Could you manage with them storing more on site at their end? To a degree, to be staggered.
I think if you've been to a concert, you want to empty it off site pretty quick. I think, yeah, there's some challenges there, including the logistics. The nicest way to get waste to a wastewater treatment plant, I think we'd all agree, through a reticulated network. So it arrives. Here we're using trucks to do it, so it's all down to the ability of them.
Do we allow 24-hour dumping then to spread it out over...
They got 24-hour access.
Right, and then we encourage them to say, or restricting them, saying like, okay, you can't dump, say, during peak town time because it's going to just crash the system, but you can, here's a window you can dump, here's a window you can dump, here's a window you can dump.
Even on top of that, you're still doubling the load into the treatment plant because of the number of people.
True, it's the entire city's population again.
So yeah, I guess it's understandable that the system wobbles regardless. So you might improve things slightly, but I think, yeah.
Okay, so that's really interesting.
It's quite amazing that perception of solid waste going onto apples and whatever is okay, and that's with the apple companies and the exporters, and yet perception of water is not.
I suppose it was more for its full biological transformation through compost after, through the BTF, and then going through composting, which is they heat to about 70 degrees, so it's a cooking process. We're used to this kind of stuff. And so you're actively converting it and turning it into really high productive.
You know what it is, Larry? I think it's the end consumer's concept that it was sprayed on the trees, irrigated onto the trees, not drip irrigated, where it's never going to be anywhere near the fruit. I think that's probably the consumer issue that have to try to overcome, which is almost impossible, but something that I think we all in the space agree is like just such an incredible valuable resource. Imagine if we could have hundreds of more hectares of high-value horticulture on these flats, courtesy of a permanent water supply. We're all contributing on a daily basis.
So the water quality that's coming out of the plant at the moment, is that has expectations? Is it as higher than the expectation was, or slightly lower? Or?
It's on. We were just working for that data coming into here. We are on target for achieving what we aim for, which is 1,000 CFU, which is quality forming units in regards to, so that's the bacteria that's in the product, and suspended solids is 50 milligrams per litre, so minor amount of that, and we're pretty much ticking those boxes when it's all flowing through.
Are you reusing it for council, for our own purposes?
Do when it's at that treatment level. So I'm kind of talking as at the end of January. We did have some plants and equipment breakdown in late February, which is manufacturing faults. So at the moment when it's bypassing certain pieces of equipment, UV clarify. But yes, what we're producing basically in long ways is looking really good, and just miles away from what stage 1 was as well.
Yeah.
In regards to quality.
Right.
So just on suspended solids, we're running about 270 with stage 1 that was historically 270 milligrams per litre. Now it's under 50 milligrams per litre, so that's 5 times better or so. And that would also be comparable to our comparative outfall. If you compare us to Napier or Hastings, who we're still at probably around that 270 mark. So you could say we're the best on the East Coast, which is some claim to fame.
Do we have an understanding of the recovery time after a rain event for the BTF?
Yeah, traditionally it's about 3 to 4 weeks. I think last year due to
Long time.
last year due to the volume of rain that hit it, we were just, the whole of last year was rain. It was at least a couple of months. So that really impacted on stage 2 progression.
It never got a break last year. It was always getting a lot of flow. So I think that question we can come back because I think that's a good one to ask. What will you expect in a normal circumstance? And I'd expect it to be back in a week or two normally after hit by a rain event. But last year it was already on the canvas right when a rain event came along. So
But we should be planning for that because we could have years in a row where it's like last year, depending on what the crazy weather does. And what's our plan B in the event that it does take 4 weeks to recover? It's constantly in recovery mode, therefore it's constantly processing it suboptimally. That's going to put pressure on everything downhill. It's going to mean that water supply, our solids base, is not as good as we want it to be. It's going to put pressure on our resource consent and opportunities. So is the option second BTF?
there's a space there for a second BTF. I think that's in the longer term plan. Is it?
Yes, it's based on the testing, So with all things going well, we don't need it, But that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah. So
Resilience.
it's really based on new industry and that come in, or population grows. So we've got a 30-year population expectation. But from should that need arise, and I think it's likely to arise at some point in the future, it's a relatively straightforward project to undertake because we've got the real estate that's already been sort of planned for, and we know the system that would go in. So it'll be relatively smooth bit of work, but quite a bit of capital. I'm not going to say a number, but yeah, tens of mil sounds about right to me. We might have had some estimates recently. I'm not sure. Don't know.
The trouble is, if we build a second one now, it's going to depreciate and they're both going to come up for renewal around the same time, and there's going to be a big hit because their life expectancy to make what, 50 years?
Well, no. Well, on assets like that, you'd always do a case by case. So I believe that exterior is so the main, you'd expect the main building to last generations, right? But within it, the internals are likely to have a shorter life. They'll be polymer or something, or
The actual media.
polyester, polythene or something, and then they'll need swapping out. And I mean that'll be the time you get another unit up, and sometime the internals of one would need to be swapped out. Obviously, that's the older one. And you've got another 20 years before you have to do that for the other one. So you're into a process, but I'd expect the civil there to be useful for generations. Yeah.
But the next question is around the composting. So I'm just trying to recall, Larry, that I think Nick asked the question around that product going towards food production. Did he get a response around what that meant?
It's going to be at this meeting. The question was asked, what is it, where is it going, what is it being used for, and it wasn't clear. I'm saying that point, what we do know is it's going into general use. So once it's gone through the composting process, it's going to multiple users, but the bulk of that providers users are vineyards, orchards, because that's really where the high volume of compost goes locally.
Yeah, I think the nature of the question though is were those people aware of, okay.
So I mean, it's all perception, isn't it? So people, obviously it doesn't matter. Compost has been proven, and they're happy with the process that it goes through to take everything out, bugs and everything, and not be any human DNA or whatever in it. And so and we've got to do the same with the water somehow down the track.
I haven't been through their facility, but I think it's a pretty big place.
Yeah.
Jones, so it may only be a percentage of all the other stuff that
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
not straight from
I know that
pick up and
blending it.
use.
I'm trying to visit them in a week or two. I haven't been either.
It's a very wet product, so it, and when they're building that compost, it goes in with multiple things to give it aeration, bark pieces, and other items to build that compost up. It's never just one thing. You're looking at the ultimate concoction for the best possible outcome and a regular, more consistent product. But they spent a lot of money creating a very advanced plant to process this product.
Given we're at the Western Public Are we being live screened?
Yes.
Are those figures open for public discussion?
Oh, we went went further down that one.
It's just the final question from me. And there's a monitoring. So now that stage 2 is functioning as designed, are we monitoring each of those steps? And so that's why you're comfortable that we're going to meet these targets.
At the moment, what we are doing is we're still, as per that, we're not in trial period, so we're doing that monitoring of each single step to optimise the performance of each principal piece of equipment to understand where that optimal performance lies. Is it meeting design? To then give us, well, okay, so are we meeting our consistent requirements of consent? And then, so we were very close before a few issues with manufacturing issues with pieces of equipment. Took us out, we were very close to end of February, proposing that we move towards trial period. We're still a couple of weeks away from repairing those faults, at which point we'll reset, and then still aim to be moving to trial period this financial year, and then we move into compliance testing. Yeah, the signs are really good.
I'm more asking it around, we know what the state of the end product looks like. What program of AUD can we put in place that can use their resource? So what do we need to do next to make it acceptable to go drip lines to the apples or whatever?
For the white?
Water.
For the water?
I think most of that sits in the public perception sphere. And a lot of that heavy lifting's been done in other jurisdictions. Where it's used for, you can get, through another process step, you can get the water to any level of quality you want. Any specification could be met. But that's usually a cost prohibitive. Certainly for things like irrigation, you'd never do that level of treatment. So the importance of getting it acceptable in communities and the type of crops would be the sort of direction you'd be wanting to point the people in the industry who might benefit from that resource. Driven by it's really has to be my view, driven by the industrial benefit of it, or the production benefit by people who know those industries, because it will have quite a large cost associated with conveying and setting up that water, and that could work well, but it needs to be driven by the numbers at the end.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think the first point is about getting that perception right. So that doesn't cost anything, right? Because we're already doing it with solids. So what is the question we're trying to answer in that regard? I'm not concerned about how that product is moved, because it's like the R&V, they move their waste there. Because it makes sense to do, right? So same thing who knows what our cylinders are going to be like.
And also who knows what other forms of water security are going to be like. I totally agree with you, Ron. I think it's a huge opportunity to not only change perception, but like build a niche. We could be exporting products out of Te Rāwhiti which boast and proudly scream on their labels that this is environmentally environmentally soundly watered, not watered where we're extracting a limited resource from an aquifer, or we're having to bury beautiful virgin bush behind dams to water these plants. That we've done it in an environmental way. And I also think that the whole question around mana whenua, tangata whenua role and ownership in the way is a really exciting issue. I think there's just so much. Given we've got a waste treatment plant that's literally at flat level with the flats which are literally flat, and we're not able to pump up over a mountain range to get to our grow, just, I don't know. And you did that great report, Leo. Did you prepare that for us in council? Was that your report you did a while ago?
You do one.
Yeah. Has that made it to this table, to this space?
Yes, yeah, I did in the last committee, the Becker report.
Yep.
Yeah, it was before my time, but yeah. The focus on that here around the end user, the end consumer, that becomes the driving, where you have to change that perception.
But if the end user is finding it more and more difficult to get a resource consent to extract water from the ground, for example, there's going to be a tipping point.
End consumer.
Oh, the end consumer,
So,
the end consumer,
export.
not the end grower, right?
Yeah, that's a big challenge.
Because we're a primary producer, so our stuff is export, so it's going to those big economies, and it's changing that perception.
Well, we certainly know from reading overseas materials that, as I've said before in this room, that Israel, Australia, California are growing thousands of hectares of high-value crops, strawberries, lettuces, blah, blah, using recycled water. They've obviously got a market for it. It couldn't be too hard to look at how they've gone about maybe case studies. Probably some PhD students done their paper on a case study on changing perception by consumers on and how this has worked.
They've all uniformly built their infrastructure out of an intense knowledge of the value of water.
Yes.
I think they're at a level of maturity in that space that we're some generation or two away from understanding as deeply as they do. But when you just mention those names and you close your eyes and try to think of the place, you're thinking desert and arid. And we're not there in our space either. So
We've got this
All
going
we need is 3 years of drought.
on. And we've got this going on with our climate.
yeah,
Because the toilets flush every day.
no, we have got this challenge in the water. Water can be of a lot of use, but the investment levels, I'm aware of the investment levels we need to put in, they're heavy. So
I suppose you're going to put them in once, don't you?
yes, that's the point.
It's a one-off cost, which is
That's the
a
point.
service for generations.
Exactly it. You've got a large volume of water at a point source, and that bit's the easy bit. That's the easy bit. The hard bit is, I think, is in off the tree or off the plant to the market accepting it. That's the hard bit.
Yeah, my fear is that if we ever waited for that to be a consumer-driven initiative, we'll still be waiting and our kids will be waiting. Whereas at some point,
It was free.
yeah, I think at some point someone like either Te Rāwhiti or a CCTO has got to kick in and say, look, actually we see this as a fantastic investment model. We see this as a great grow model. What is it, something like 40% of the flats are still in grains and grasses, which are low yield, low value crops.
Yeah.
We could be generating a lot of jobs, a lot of IP, a lot of high value products. We just talked to that hui this morning about sending logs offshore with no value added. and we have the ability to add value, and a port which is looking to diversify from logs to something else, you know, sending off containers of high value projects is
Right.
One more for me, sorry Larry. So I think the success of the Judd's example though is a model we can roll with water. So, you know, the perception it's gone through a natural process, you know, through land process, I think is the key for that perception to be acceptable. I'm just saying this because we've always been fighting for a what do you call that thing? A pond system where we can replicate through land process, right? So that gets through the perception stuff. So I just want to let this chair that if we can get some update from the Mayor and the CEO on the discussions with landowners on this issue.
Wetland water park? That's the thing, if you're going to do a wetland, well then you go
Things,
with other different options.
two different things.
Two different things?
Wetland is not a water park.
if the line travels through the wetland into the water park, then you're capturing it, and then you've got as a reservoir.
For boats. Oh, Nadine, oh sorry, Nadine.
Kia ora, sorry, it's my voice coming from out of the system. Hey, just in terms of the question around, just turn on my camera. Just in terms of that question around conversations, was this in relationship to the wetlands? Yep, so there is, and Tim and Jean are following up with the new chair for further conversations with Māori landowners around our re-engagement and relationship discussions in that space.
Oh, great.
Time frames?
Time frames at all, Nadine?
Well, Tim's having the first initiation meeting, so perhaps he could comment when that's going to be, but it's first to reset our relationship and a memorandum of understanding in that space, and then we'll work forward around what that might mean, whether it is something that they are still interested in pursuing. If not, then we'll be having to look at other options.
Thank you, Nadine.
Just through you, Mr. Chair, as an update, I met with the Chair of Te Aupuni Moana Trust this morning to obviously further that discussion around the relationship agreement, but he also mentioned the possibility of a joint management agreement with between North Katiwi Trust, Paukahu, Kōpū Tūtia, and Te Aupuni Moana Trust as well. So just raising that certainly for awareness, and will be part of the discussions that result from the relationship agreement with Te Aupuni Moana Trust. That is a conversation that is obviously much wider than that relationship directly, but certainly an update there, and obviously we'll work through those priorities and see. Still, we didn't get into detail at this morning's discussion, but see if that is still an opportunity for discussion with the Trust.
Right. Awesome. Thank you, Jim. Exciting times ahead.
Yeah, well, not want to lose an opportunity. The work that was started on the manager for recharge, it could be put back into the picture too.
Yeah, right, okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So will we get an update report at the next hui on Jean's corridor and on what Member Brown has just asked for?
Yeah. Please. Manage Aquifer program. Where it's at.
Wastewater and the manager for recharge.
Yeah, right.
Around the salinity issues and stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's all been there, isn't it? It's all there already been done. Yeah. Cool. Right, is there any more questions on this paper at all? It's just a noting report.
I'm happy to move it.
Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Angus. All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Okay, that brings us to the end of this week. Penny, would you like to?
Certainly, Chair.
I just have a question. Is that meant to be influent or effluent on page 47 of it?
Influence are coming in.
It's called influent. Oh, okay.
I learned this stuff.
But it's effluent, but it's influent. Okay.
Yeah.
into the treatment plant, right?
Yes.
Right. So it's influential and effluent.
Thank you, Chair. Nā whakamumu ki te atua, kia mau tonu ki runga ki a tātou katoa, chatifai o te atua, te aroa o te klaichi, te whiwhi nā tonutanga i te wairua tapu ake ake. Amen.
Amen.